Ready? Let me just find my place here. Don't you hate when you write something up and then you forget what the hell you did with it? Yeah, okay. Mr. Kluski. Okay, if we can, we'll call the meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everyone to the May 14th, 2021 regular meeting of the Barefoot Bay Recreation District Board of Trustees. As we always do in tradition, we will spend a moment remembering those who gave their lives for protecting our freedoms, and also those who work every day to protect us, our freedoms, our interests in our health every day with the COVID disease. Moment of silence. Thank you. Mr. Gruno, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Thank you, sir. We have no... Mr. Gruno, would you please do the roll call?
Okay, Mr. Loveland is excused. Mr. Gruno is present. Mr. Morrissey. Present. Mr. Nugent. Present. Chairman Mino.
Present.
We also have John Coffey, our community manager, Stephanie Brown, our district clerk, and Cliff Reffinger, our general counsel. I did also see outside Matt Getz, Property Services, and Richard Armington, Human Resources, DOR. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Are there any additions, deletions to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda stands as it is. Approval of minutes. You have the minutes for April 27, 2021, and we also have minutes for the quarterly town hall minutes dated April 29, 2021. Are there any changes, corrections to those minutes? If there are none, I would accept a motion to approve both minutes.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Mr. Morrissey. Who moved, by the way? Okay, and who seconded? Jim? Okay. Any changes, discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Treasurer's report. Mr. Loveland is not here, so I will do the Treasurer's report again. Cash balances in the general fund as of 5/6/21, petty cash $2,500. Operating cash in the banks, the MB&T operating account $619,032.48 for total operating accounts of $619,032.48. Our MB&T money market account $2,600,000. The SBA reserve account $699,513.38. Total interest-bearing accounts are $3,299,513.38. Total cash balances in the general fund, $3,921,045.86. Total deposits, daily deposits, $96,959.02. Interest received on money market accounts, $70.11. Assessments received, $78,509.36. Total deposits received, $175,538.49. Expenditures for 4/20/21 through 5/6/21. Total expenditures of $5,000 and above, $161,216.65. Expenditures under $5,000, $52,722.31. Total expenditures, $213,938.96. Can I have a motion to accept the treasurer's report and approve the bills as presented?
Move to accept treasurer's report.
Second? Mr. Morrissey seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Unfinished business, our budget review, fiscal year 22. Mr. Coffey, yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I miss it? I did. Oh, I'm sorry. I missed audience participation. I was excited to get to the budget. I'm sorry. I only have one note up here, and that's from Mr. James Ling. But again, it's open to anyone who would like to speak. So, Mr. Ling, please. Give your name, please, and your address.
James Ling, 738 Periwinkle Circle. I'm here today on behalf of the Shuffleboard Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Friday group. And I see on the agenda, and I heard that they're going to place canopies over our seats. They're really useless. They're too high, and they don't really protect anything, and I don't know the cost of them, but I know from the bocce, they don't really do any good. What we really need is 4 of the courts redone, re-leveled, painted, and up to what they should be, and new equipment, the disc, the sticks, and the scoreboard panels are in bad shape too. And I have a question as to when they took the courts off for the miniature golf, what'd they do with those scoreboards? They might be in better shape than the ones we got on what we're using today. That's a question. Thank you.
So, excuse me, so you're talking about shuffleboard, correct?
Shuffleboard, yeah.
Shuffleboard, okay, thank you. And do you, one other question for you, sir. Do you play shuffleboard quite often? Do you have a group? Do you play quite often?
Yes, I play Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays.
Okay, thank you.
3 days a week.
Thank you. Anyone else, please? Yes, sir, come up. State your name, please, and your address.
Yes, sir. Michael Santis. Actually, I'm a
You
real
can
estate investor.
you can take your mask off to speak
Thank
if you would. Thank you.
My name is Michael Santis. I'm a real estate investor, and I'm actually here to present myself and request something from the board. We acquired 11 properties in the last month. One is an older home, which we're in the process of renovating, and 10 empty lots that we bought from the county at the lands available. In regards to the lots, we're going to be infilling them with 10 mobile homes, brand new mobile homes, in the next 12 months. Also, we'd like to request for the board to reconfirm the debt forgiveness given to 8 of those lots. If you don't mind, I would like to mention those.
I'm sorry, you're asking for debt forgiveness for what? For 8 lots?
They were already given a couple months back,
Okay.
and I just
Hold
want to confirm that.
Just 1 second, hold on.
Yes, sir.
What's that, John? Okay. Let Mr. Coffey, please, just carefully have a minute.
And Mr. Armington, if I get this wrong, please butt in. But previously, a Buffalo Bill Bob person had requested forgiveness of properties bought on a tax deed sale. The board authorized that. Staff never executed the forgiveness of those liens as he did not follow through purchasing those lots. And this gentleman here has subsequently bought some of those lots that the board had authorized us to forgive the liens for Mr. Buffalo.
Okay.
So that's where the reference is.
Okay. So, all right, sir, go ahead.
So as I was mentioning, out of the 10 empty lots, 8 of those are the ones that are mentioned there. The other 2 did not have any liens pending. So just wanted to introduce myself, request that from the board, and let you guys know that we're going to be inputting new homes there. They're not going to be for rent. They're going to be sold. So bringing, opportunity to new families to enjoy the barefoot lifestyle.
Okay, thank you. Okay, again, Mr. Reppinger, I'm going to call you in a minute, but again, this is something just brand new, so we're not going to deal with this right now. Mr. Reppinger, sure, go ahead, answer, please.
And that's exactly what I was going to advise the chair, is that this is kind of a complicated issue, and I did speak to Rich about it this morning. The board, as Mr. Coffey has indicated, had previously approved the waiver back in November based on a certain operative set of facts related to that particular buyer at tax deed sale. We know nothing about this individual, no disrespect to this individual, but obviously the board at this point is not prepared to address that issue. So what I would recommend that you do is that you put this as an agenda item for the next meeting if you want to consider this. As indicated, the releases were not granted because of the situation of the owner allowing those lots to go to the lands available list. The owner that was granted that waiver specific to that owner did not do what that owner said that they were going to do, which was to take possession, pay the tax collector what was due, and then develop those lots, and that did not happen. So, so the board needs to reconsider that issue if you want to do anything with it, and I would suggest you put that on the next agenda or whatever the board's pleasure is regarding that.
Okay, sir, I would suggest, this is brand new, just coming up, so I would suggest you contact our Barefoot Bay Recreation District and go through whatever process it is, and we can deal with this as an agenda item in the future.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. We have already paid for the recreational fees, and we're ready to, I guess, comply with whatever requirements are made.
I'm sorry?
We have already paid for the recreational fees for the empty lots. And
Right, but
also-
I'm saying just contact our offices, and you can talk to them as to how you go through this process so that we could get it on the agenda, because we know nothing about this right now. So just if you would do that, it would come up as a future agenda item.
Okay, sir.
Okay?
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you. No, this is fine. This is an item that's just come up to us, so.
The gentleman had been previously advised that on April 9th, the board had given us instructions not to bring lien forgiveness requests back to the board, and so that's why he appeared before you today. So if you want, as a group, to specifically allow us to bring this back, but on April 9th, you'd given us instructions not to bring any more lien forgivenesses forward.
Yeah, okay. We will have to have a discussion about this and talk about this. Yeah. Okay. Any other audience participation? We're not going to get into a discussion of it now. We went off kilt a little bit already, responding to you, which we normally don't do. So I appreciate it. We will look into this and we will get back. He had his hand in the air. That's why I'm addressing him. Okay. Any other? I'm sorry, Cliff.
Go ahead.
Okay. Any other audience participation, please?
My name is Megan Russell. I live at 803 Beach Court. I'm here because we just got finished with our court summary in regards to coming into compliance with Barefoot Bay's laws. So basically, the courts are telling us to make a choice. The issue is that we're not in compliance because my husband and I got married in 2014. I had 2 dogs at the time, and he had 2 dogs. We gave away 2 dogs, but unfortunately, one had to come back due to withdrawal, not accepting the family we had her with. These are our babies. So now they're making us make a choice between which one to give away. Again. So I'm going to leave it in your hands. Do I pick the oldest, who is 12 and a half? Or do I pick the youngest, who is 8 and has been with us since birth? Because I have 3 huskies. And they're our babies. Or we have to be sued by the Bay and pay expenses or whatever. So I'm leaving it in your hands. Do I choose my oldest or do I choose my youngest to give it away? We didn't have a chance to talk in our June meeting, which we were scheduled to talk on the 25th of June, because we were informed by Stefan, I don't know how to say his last name, that our meeting was postponed until July. And that was on the day that I went and complained that he was harassing us. I have photos and documentation that he would come to my house 5 times a day and sit in front of our house. I actually hooked up my husband's hunting camera because it was getting to the point of straight up harassment. And now, those dogs have been in that house since 2014 when we got married. And now you're making me make the choice on which of the 3 to pick. I don't understand. We've never done anything wrong except for fall in love and unfortunately had 2 animals apiece. I thank you for your time since he's looking at the clock.
Well, I thank you. I was just I can't see it, so I was checking. Thank you. Again, we just heard about this today, so it's not anything that we are going to discuss or have anything to do with right now. We just heard about the case this morning. But again, it was a court case, and so I appreciate your input, but thank you. Any other audience participation? Last chance. Okay, thank you. Any other letters or calls? No. Audience participation is closed. Okay, unfinished business. Proposed budget review. Mr. Coffey.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, trustees, residents gathered here and at home. The board previously has made some amendments to the budget. At the last meeting, they added a south side outside awning to the lounge and an outside bar to the lounge. At the town hall meeting, there was discussion about increasing the one-time social membership fee. Shortly after that meeting, Trustee Loveland contacted me and asked that a proposal to increase it currently in the proposed FY22 budget, it's proposed to be increased $50 from the current $750 plus tax to $800 plus tax. Mr. Loveland asked for an additional $600 to be added into FY22 and $50 annual increases thereafter. That analysis has been in the agenda memo. It would add approximately $184,000 to FY22. Staff requests direction regarding his proposal, and also if there's any additional projects that the board would like to add to the budget at this point. Of note, there currently is a $197,000 surplus in FY22. So if you added the Loveland proposal, that would take you up to about $380,000 surplus. Of note for folks new to the community, at our next board meeting, the board has to authorize a budget mail out. So time's winding down on making changes to the budget. We can always make changes on the next 3 meetings up to the 22nd of June or 25th of June when we adopt the budget. But for the mail out, we have to authorize it at the next meeting. For the audience's understanding, I've given the board in paper copies of updated 5-year plan with the list of unfunded projects. Mr. Getz and I can answer most of the questions about any projects. If there's anything golf course, I know Mr. Cruz and the chairman discussed things last week, and I'm up to speed on most things on the golf course capital-wise. We are ready to answer any questions the board may have of us.
For the board, I have a number of questions, and I have a whole plan kind of a thing, but if someone else would like to go first, I would allow it, but otherwise I'll throw some things out, if that's okay? Or would you like to go, someone else going to go first? Okay? Okay, a couple things here. Number one, we got to make sure that I understand. So the canopy for the lounge is the one we had originally had talked about, like $36,000 or something, right? It's now, didn't we say at one time we could put something up 36, and this is the same canopy, correct?
Originally, there was a 4,600 square foot canopy in the major project. This is I believe, 30 by 36 canopy, the one that costs approximately $30,000.
Okay, very good. And again, I met with Ernie and I met with Kathy Mendez, and very, very good meetings, very lot of information, just trying to understand what their priorities were. Again, want to make sure that we have that in the budget already in 2022 to take away the building where the heater is and pool number one, and that's going outside, which is going to free that whole area up with the lounge. So it's going to help a lot. We already have in the budget the bars going in there, correct? Okay. Making sure, and again, as you look at, and I know I said this to you before, I'm saying it for the public, as you look at the information you gave us, John, you just said it's about 190 now, but the original information you gave us was that in fiscal year 22 ending, we were going to have about 177,000 surplus after we did all the capital projects for that year that we talked about, paid everybody, did everything. And our fund balance is still up over 20%, isn't it? Correct? Okay. And then you gave the amounts, I'm doing this for the public, not for you, and for the board, you understand what I'm going on here. You gave the amounts each year after that of what we looked at as a surplus that would simply be added to the fund balance if we didn't use it, which again, we have a 20% fund balance each of those years, if I'm correct going back. Okay. So with that, I just want to tell the board that originally I was against this proposal. I was against the proposal of going from $750 to $800. I mean, from going from the $50 raise to $800. I had a number of reasons for that. Since then, we've had a lot of audience participation, and people have talked about it, and there's some good information came out. And when you go back and check the number of homes we have, there's absolutely no question that raising that fee will not hurt a single person, a single homeowner in the Bay right now. It will only affect new people buying homes. I think your budget is based on about 35 new homes a year, if I read that correctly. If you figured this out, I think it's probably based on about 35 a year. 420 is, right? Okay. And so this last month we had 54, I think we sold.
Yeah, the 420 is home transactions.
Home
sales.
transactions, correct. Yep. But each one of those is the fee. Okay, that's what I'm getting at. Okay. Okay, and so going back, and again, it's hard when you can't talk to board members. When I was a superintendent, our board members could get together a couple and talk and discuss things before board meetings, but you can't do that in Florida. Since that time, if you look at the total revenue that we have as a surplus, and you look at the total revenue according to Randy's proposal that would come up, for instance, we would have a total of $360,000. This is just my rough numbers. Based on this information that John gave us, we'd have $360,000 the first year, $515,000 the next year, $467,000, $404,000, and $384,000. That's a lot of money that we can do a lot of things with and not affect a single taxpayer dollar of the people who live here now. Okay? So I have a proposal. Originally it was brought up, I think, by, I'm not going to say who it is. It was brought up a couple of times that we go to $1,500 rather than the $700 or $800. Okay? I would be the person, I would push this and vote for it, of going to, rather than $1,200 a year, going to $1,300, $1,350, $1,400, $1,450, and $1,500 in 5 years. And let me tell you why. If we go to that, it would give us in the first year $386,500. You had said about $390,000. The next year, $542,000, $494,000 the next year, $431,000 the next, $700,000 the year in 5, if all things went as planned. But we're really not committing much. I would like to commit and support this proposal to go, if we have specific things that we would do. And so and again, it's late in the day for this because we do have to pass budgets, but if you look at everything that we need here, we're trying to improve the two big amenities of the lounge and the golf course. So we're trying to improve things at the lounge as much as we can. Okay, I would present this, $386,000. I would support this proposal of going from 13 up to 15 in 5 years. If, for instance, my number one priority would be a new stove hood and at the 19th hole. I don't know if any of you have ever been in the 19th hole kitchen. We have a 2-burner stove that we do all the cooking for pasta nights and everything else that was there on 2 burners. It's like, it's smaller than my bathroom almost, and what they have in there. So we can put in for about $70,000 a brand new hood. We can put a new stove in there. They can move because we also have on the plan a walk-in cooler for the 19th hole. So we would then move all the things, the sinks and stuff, back into the original cooler. You can do things like that, and we would improve the 19th hole immensely without ever going to that multi-million-dollar plan that people had a few years ago of renovating the whole thing. It would improve service, food service. It would improve the conditions for our workers back there. It would just do immense things. That would be number one. My number two would be the walk-in cooler at the lounge that Mr. Coffey has proposed. We have a cooler there, and Kathy and I went through it the other day. It is bulging with things. They don't have enough storage. They need another walk-in cooler. So we're talking $70,000, $63,000. The next thing I would do is I would suggest, and I'm giving you my ideas, the next thing I would suggest would be something that would affect people immediately, and that would be to pave the pool parking lot at pool number 3. I've had so many requests about that pool that people trip on the old concrete and in the old asphalt and they step, and okay, this was something we would have extra money to do, to actually do something tomorrow, a shovel-ready kind of project that people could do. And the next two things are at the golf course. We took out the piping and the new heads and everything because it's about $250,000, $300,000 each year. But there are two projects there that Mr. Cruz feels are safety issues still, and that is the lake bank restoration on holes 6, 2, and 3, and the lake bank restoration on holes 5, 9, 12, and 13. That's about $100,000 for one and $75,000 for the other. All of those things comes to about $386,000, and it would not come from raising a single penny in assessment. It would simply come from new money that we would bring in plus our surplus. So I know this is difficult to do it now, but I think at this point we have to decide, first of all, whether we go to the assessment raise. Again, I'm asking you, I mean, is that something we should be deciding right now? And then if so, the question is, what are we going to do with it? Or is it off-key?
No, everything you propose is reasonable. The benefit of making a decision today or at the next meeting is we're going to mail out 5,000 pieces of paper with that information in it. You can always make a change to it, but whether we like it or not, the overwhelming majority of the people get their budget information from the budget mail out. They don't pay attention to the board meetings. They don't pay attention peak of the week, the website. The budget mail out is their single snapshot of the year of what we're going to do. And so I'd encourage you to, try to make the best decision today. And then if you want to change it, you change it. But definitely, if the majority of the board wants to go to $1,300 for the one-time social membership, as you've listed out, that frees up these projects that we can include in the mail-out. The mail-out only covers FY22. It doesn't cover the out years, and so that stuff can be worked on later.
And all of these projects that I'm talking about are in our plan.
Yeah.
They're just thrown off, post off, because we didn't have the money to look at doing them in the more closer years.
Correct.
I guess my point is that if I'm going to, my vote, and I'm just one vote, if I'm going to vote and support an increase in the assessment, then we'd better know what we're going to do with the money, and I'm simply going based on things that, not my issues even, but issues of the people who work here, who are saying, if you got money, these are things we'd like done. So I guess throw it open to the board. And someone may have other issues that they think are more important, but these are mine based on meeting with our staff. Yes, Jim.
Would it be appropriate for us to go forward with a motion to increase the assessment fee and then put at a next meeting the proposals of how we're going to prioritize what projects should be done in what fiscal year based upon our available dollars?
And it's a very good idea. And the point again, though, is that we have to make sure we all agree that we're going to actually designate things to be done to use that money. We don't need to add to our fund balance. We don't need to have more than what we have right now. We'd love to have it, but we're not a bank. So if we're going to increase the fee, even though it's on new homeowners, it's got to be designated as to what we're going to do with it.
And Mr.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, this is just for folks watching who may be new. What the $1,300 you're talking about is the one-time social membership
Right.
fee. The assessment is not going up that
No,
much.
no.
The assessment on the tax bill is going up 1%.
Exactly. A good point, John. Yes. That's the point of this. This will not affect a dollar of the people who live here. It will only be for new transactions for homes. It's a one-time fee. We all paid it when we got it. I didn't even know I had it when I bought my home, and I paid the $750 or whatever. But again, it is a one-time fee, and everyone pays it. It would only affect new people. Mr. Gruno, yes.
Well, I've always been in favor of this. I thought that our first-time fee was low. A couple of my thoughts would be I would go $1,500 and not do the increments. Nobody's going to notice, and we're going to confuse the real estate people. So I'd go right to $1,500, be done with it for at least 5 years. The other thing...
Yeah, let me interrupt. The only reason I think I and Randy both proposed the increment is so that it's not quite such a shock effect to even people. It's not, boom, not just that. It is saying, okay, well, we'll go an increment to give everybody understanding and get used to how we're doing this. You know, it's a methodical kind of thing. But I understand your point, but that's the reason I went, again, increments.
You know, $1,300, $1,500, I don't think it's going to make a single difference on a home sale. I do think this is a good idea. I was going to make another suggestion or muse. We have a lot of projects to do, and I know several of the board members were hesitant to take out a loan. But why don't we take the loan out, earmark $500 of this fee to pay the debt service, and go big or go home, fix everything instead of trying to make a priority list. Third thing I was thinking about is if a person in the Bay buys another home in the Bay, this does not apply to them.
This is what?
If I'm a homeowner, I go buy another home in the Bay, I don't pay the $1,500 or $1,300.
I think they do.
If you're going to move there and sell your existing house, you pay it, you get it refunded. If you're buying it as an investment property or for your child to live in, you would pay that
you'd
second
pay the
fee.
fee.
So if it's your primary residence and you sell your existing primary residence, you get it refunded to you. You pay it at closing on your second home.
Okay.
And then you give us the documentation, show that you've met the criteria, you get it refunded. If you're buying it for a family member or for rental property, you would pay that fee.
Okay, that's good. And then I strongly agree with Chairman Mino about getting some projects done, because I think people go, what are you going to do with the money? And I think it's really good to have a roadmap. The other night, the CVO had the meet and greet, and that big building in the middle was, distracted. There's all kinds of different layers over there, and yet the stage with the band was great, and I thought the whole event was great, but we need to clean that area up a little
Well,
bit.
and that's why I prefaced this by saying we are doing things already that, irregardless if we go for this new assessment, we already are doing those things. That's going to be gone. We're going to put that canopy up. We're going to put, I think, Kathy's not here, I don't believe. Is she? No. I think she told me, you're going to get 25, 30 more tables in there. There's going to be more room, space. It'll be direct line for the band and everything. and the bar will be there, and that will have a little bit of a shelter coming out even. So, yeah, those things are going to be done, and that's the point. Everything we're doing now is going to be the new money, new things that we can do to improve. And again, a lot of it will be to the lounge and the 19th hole. You can't just go in the 19th hole as a trustee and just walk back there unless you got somebody with you, because otherwise we're imposing. That's not our job. But I got to tell you, you have to go in that kitchen with Kathy someday. When I first ran for this board, that was the first thing I told her. I said, Kathy, no matter what, someday we're going to get you a new stove and a new hood and whatever. This is like working in a little sweatshop here. And when I talked with her over there, that is her priority. I mean, they could do so much more if they had an adequate stove, and I hate to say this, but I mean, the stove is literally like the stove you have in your home. It's this big, and it's got 2 burners and a little griddle. And it just is not what we should have over there for what we're trying to do. And that's without expanding the 19th hole, without moving the walls out, without doing anything. It's just putting a new hood in along the big wall, new stove, moving the old stove out, putting the sinks out. It's just some major little things that Kathy thinks for $70,000 we could get done. Again, it's just an estimate.
I'm good with that.
But it's the kind of thing that I think whether it's this meeting or next meeting, as Jim said, that we have to come up with a project and say, this is what we want done. I'd love to have the greens replaced at the golf course. A couple of years ago, I talked about it. But we don't want to take all the money and stick it into one thing either. We want to do what will help people at all the different amenities, and even the pool parking lot. Whether it's really bad or not, I think that's, what do they call it, shovel-ready things, that it's a simple thing to go and pave a parking lot and put some asphalt down. The only thing I don't understand about the parking lot was what is a retention pond on a parking lot? I don't understand what that is.
Anytime in the last 20 years going forward, when you put in on a non-residential lot, you put impervious surface down, you have to retain that water that's going to run off. And so pool 2 and 3 have surplus areas. There is water close to pool 3. Pool 2, the water's a little bit away from the parking lot. But anytime, years ago, you could put asphalt down, you didn't have to do anything, but now you do.
And again, pool number 2 is also on there to have it done. And my idea is that we actually get active in this and say, okay, if we're going to increase this fee, we'll come up with a list of things we put back into our 5-year plan for the next year to use that money. We don't have to do that right now because we're only talking about 2022 right now. But those are things that we could do and move them up, because we would hope that we're going to receive the kind of money that we're talking about. And if you don't have, of course, do the projects. But for 2022, I think we should be very specific.
I think we should show progress and invest in the community.
So if we passed a motion saying that, number one, we're going to, and I know, Jim, Mr. Bruno, you'd like to go to 1,500. I'm not sure I could support that going into the first year. I liked Randy's proposal of going 1,250, but with the 1,300, it would give us enough money to do the kinds of things we're talking about right now and go up in increments. But if we passed a motion saying that we're going to do it one way or another, and we said the next meeting we would add specific projects to the plan, is that work, or is it out of our timeline, or what do we need to do?
No, I think if what you proposed, if you had a motion for the $1,300 social membership and those 4 or 5 projects, however, if you count the golf course, Lake Banks as 1 or 2, early next week I'll get you out an update of that, and that'll give you time to look at, and we'll prepare the mail out based on that. And if you want to add something to it, we can adjust the mail out and you improve it, and we move forward.
Okay, so how about if we do this? I'm not trying to monopolize exactly what we do here, but I spend a lot of time trying to figure that if I'm going to support this, I'm only going to support it if I know exactly what we'll do. I would look for a motion that we increase the one-time social membership fee starting in 2022 by $1,300. It goes up to $1,300, then $1,350, $1,450, $1,500 in 5 years. Part of that motion would be that we would, I'm going to list these 5 things, and part of the motion that we would spend the money on a stove hood, and stove and hood at the 19th hole, that we would support buying a walk-in cooler at the lounge, that we would look to repave pool number 3 parking lot. We would do lake bank restoration, and you can look at your budgets, by the way. This is all in the unfunded projects of your printouts. We would do the lake bank restoration on number 6, number 2, number 3, and we would do lake bank restoration on number 5, 9, 12, and 13. By the way, lake bank restoration means they're going to build up those banks so that when people who are bad golfers hit their balls in the water and they go look for it, the banks don't give in and they fall in. And that's what's happening, and we did it at all the other ponds at the other side. We haven't done these yet. We just did the other ones last year. So I would look for a motion supporting the increase with those 5 things, with the addendum that if board members have some other things they think would be more appropriate, they would bring them back at the next meeting. But in other words, knowing we're going to do the increase with these kinds of things in mind. Does it make sense or not? We're not. These don't have to be the locked in stone. The next board meeting, if these aren't good, come back with something else, and we'll discuss exactly what we do.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
it's quite a increase, but it's necessary, especially if we don't want to take a loan out. I hope this is not going to add to a suggestion that we do that, because I'm against that. At first, I thought it was very excessive, but understanding what the problem was and what it is and what it's for, I'm for it.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Nugent.
I would suggest that we go forward with the motion to raise the fee to $1,300 effective July 1st, and the incremental increase would take place at the beginning of fiscal year 2023.
Well,
With the $50 increase,
say that again now?
the $50 social purchase
Yeah.
would increase to $1,300 effective July 1st this year. The next increase would be effective October 1st, 2023.
Okay, so our fiscal year begins on October 1, so it would be, for October 1, it would be the $1,300.
Effective July 1st
Yeah.
this year.
Can we do that?
You may run into some folks who are in the process of developing their closing paperwork. You can, it can be done. You might have some new homeowners upset right off the bat that they have to write us an extra check more than at closing, but, because, some people work with the title companies that get things done ahead of time. Some title companies do it at the last minute.
I'm not opposed to that. I guess I'm wondering the same thing. So if we've got somebody who's looking at closing right now, we're in May, so we got June, July. Let's say a closing is 60 days. They may already be thinking we're paying $750.
Well, I had a conversation with a realtor who was getting ready to list, and most folks who have dealt with local realtors, sadly, some of them clearly don't understand Barefoot Bay because it took a while for this lady to understand we don't have an HOA. But she had a hard time understanding the one-time social membership may go up $50 in October. So I think the more lead time you have, the less confusing it will be on folks. Because,
Is that a problem, Jim, if we did it? That wouldn't be a problem? Because I would hate to have, I'm trying to throw this out there so the people who do live here know that this is not something that's going to impact them, but I would hate to have somebody who is in the process of buying a home all of a sudden feel like we're doing something to them,
I would
So
say,
if it's okay, I would rather stick with the fiscal year, October 1.
yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Let's keep it clean and stay with
Yeah.
fiscal years.
All right, so let's go forward with the motion.
Okay, so you all understand the motion. We're going up the increments. We're putting the 5 things I talked about with the idea that at the next meeting, we will come back and discuss for sure what the exact things are. Is that appropriate, John? Okay. Any other discussion about this? I know it's a lot to throw out, and it's bad when you can't talk to board members ahead of time, but just to explain things, but it is what we do. Although, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying, let's do a roll call vote. Mr. Gruno. Mr. Morrissey. Mr. Nugent.
Aye.
And the chairman votes aye. Okay, motion passes. Sorry, it took a lot of time, but... Okay, anything else on the budget? We covered everything, right? Phase reopening discussion.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Staff's recommendations is effective Monday. 2 recommendations. Cease the 30-minute midday closure at the administration building. Over the past years, the managers and I have gotten pretty proficient on doing the COVID protocol wipe down. We can do that while the building is open. And additionally, we recommend effective Monday ceasing checking of temperatures for entry into facilities and pools.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation. We would look for a motion on the recommendation.
Move on to COVID recommendations.
Second? Mr. Morrissey, second. Discussion. I have some things I guess I would ask, and it was asked to us prior to the meeting starting. Because of the things that have changed now, do we have any new input, any new wording on masks? A gentleman asked, if you've been vaccinated, both shots, are you still required to wear masks? Some places in the country, they're changing all these things. Anything that we know here?
Well, the
I'm
governor...
talking about for our meeting
Yeah.
in here.
The governor recently, issued an executive order and is signing a law basically preempting regulations that local government make. Those are regulations on private property. Any regulation or restriction Barefoot Bay Recreation District has is only for our property. So we can continue and not be in violation of the governor's direction. Yes, I've been peppered with the latest CDC. It'll be interesting if they change their mind next week on it. But the question on that is, right now, this meeting is the only place where masks are required to be in. The latest guidance from the CDC is for folks who've had both shots. I have no idea how you look at people out in the audience and see who has 2 shots. So
Right.
It's either everybody wears masks or nobody wears masks.
So I'm not asking you to change this. I'm happy the way it is. I have throw one other thing at you. Again, it has to do with the golf course. We are still allowing, and I've had this brought to me a number of times, and I'm sure Mr. Cruz would appreciate it. We are still allowing people to go one person to a cart at the golf course. Every other course around now has switched over to where they're back to the 2 people riding in a cart. I do know that even though I love to ride in my own cart, well, I don't play anymore, but even though I love to ride in my own cart, I do know that when you have 40 people out there and there's 40 carts running around in one group, you are tearing up the golf course and you're making it worse. Have we any input from Mr. Cruz about thinking of going back to 2 to a cart?
We haven't addressed that specifically within the last couple of weeks. The discussion the managers and I've had over the last few weeks was, I reviewed these proposals with them, and basically we just opened up the buildings to 75% last week, and we were taking a wait-and-see approach. I think you may see some additional recommendations further opening up. The mask issue in this building is similar to 1 person per table. It's a comfort level of folks. Personally, I think this community is at a point where if you don't feel comfortable coming in indoors where people aren't wearing masks, you can watch this live stream at home. That's an option. Typically in the summertime, which regardless what the calendar says, here in Florida we're in the summertime, we don't max out meeting spaces. So we got 50 chairs set up out there. We don't have 50 people. So I think we could remove the mask requirement for this meeting without much effect. It's strictly a comfort level. My staff, as you know, coming in the administration building and other sites, the ones who have concerns may wear a mask, but most folks don't. I carry mine in my pocket. If I meet with residents who want me to wear a mask, I put it on. Most folks I meet with anymore don't want to wear a mask.
And you know, I do the same thing. I wear it when I go into places, and when I come in here, I take it off because I've got to speak so much. I know, way too much. But I guess, so my point is, I guess, would you rather stick with what you've got right here and look at future things at the next meeting, or is that appropriate?
I would feel comfortable if you wanted to add removing the mask mandate for these
Then
meetings going
let's
forward.
do that, if that would be appropriate.
Yeah, I was going to
If
say,
that's okay?
rather than get people confused,
Yeah.
and I agree with John, CDC will probably change their mind next week again. Let's put it in there, because I went over to Winn-Dixie the other day and everybody had their masks off.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess, you're right, I guess we would add, I would add that to the recommendation that we, remove masks in our building here after this. Is that okay? I guess, wait a minute, Cliff, we made a motion, what do you have to do, amend the motion? Yeah, we have to amend the motion that was made to accept the two recommendations to add the removal of masks at our meeting. Who made the motion, Mr. Gruno?
I move we amend the motion to include the masks to the
Okay, and who
COVID.
seconded it? It was Mr. Morrissey, I believe. And would you approve that second? Yes, okay. Okay, any other discussion about this? And I would ask, though, that you do talk to Ernie about the business about the golf carts, because it's about time we go, even though I love that, it's about time we go away from it. And the guys at the course understand that this should be changed fairly soon, so. Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Adoption of amended policy manual revising swimming rules and additional rules for remote control boat usage.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This agenda with the resolution would officially add to the policy manual language revising pool regulations to reference swim kid events, the kids swim badges and process, clarifying some of the intentions of existing rules, adding language the board previously had a consensus to about remote-controlled boats. In the past, I've copied the language into the agenda memo. I did not do that this time because some of it is rather extensive. If anyone on the board would like to change anything, I have the Word document that I can pop up and we can wordsmith this all afternoon. Mr. Reppinger does need to read the resolution before a motion is made.
Mr. Reppinger, please.
Resolution 2021-08, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Barefoot Bay Recreation District providing for the adoption of a revision to the policy manual adopted May 8, 2009, as subsequently amended through April 9, 2021, providing for conflicts and providing an effective date.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion to approve the resolution as read? We need, in order to get it discussed, we have to approve a motion or
Move
not
we
approve it.
accept the resolution as
And is
read.
there a second?
Second.
Mr. Nugent seconded. Okay, discussion.
I looked at it. It is quite lengthy, but it looked good.
It definitely took a little bit of work. There's definitely a lot of information, a lot of changes here. You've had it all. You can see all the changes. Anyone else? Questions? Comments? I think, again, in my opinion, we're doing something here. I think the swim thing was Mr. Gruno's idea, wasn't it? And, I know a lot of people with kids think that we should do some other things for them. And, again, we're trying to do that. I know there are people against the boats, but there are also people who run them. And I think this is a compromise when they're using them and where they're using them and the hours they can use them. I guess all we can do is see what happens and see how it goes. Okay, you heard a motion, respect the recommendation. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Rules for the Board of Trustee amendment.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This amendment to the rules for the BOT, there's no substantive changes from previous intent. What this does is, a year and a half ago, when in 2019 we made multiple changes to the rules of the BOT. For the July 25th, 2017, in the March 28, 2017 changes, I inadvertently did not use the right copy that had those in. I went to a previous copy, and so for the current copy that's out there, changes that were for those two resolutions were not included. This resolution, and I've underlined and marked up as best as I could the rules of the BOT, brings everything current with the prior board's intent. There is a resolution Mr. Reppinger needs to read. Staff recommends approval.
Just before you read the recommendation, most of this deals with committees and agenda, right? Which is, okay. Mr. Reppinger, please.
Resolution 2021-06, a resolution of the Barefoot Bay Recreation District amending and adopting a revised set of rules for the Board of Trustees, providing for severability, providing for conflict with other provisions, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, sir. Can I have a motion to accept the resolution as presented, please? Mr. Nugent, move. Second, please.
Second.
Mr. Gruno, seconded. Discussion, questions, comments? Again, as I indicated, I believe this is mostly dealing with old information about committees and agendas and those kinds of things. It's something we're going by, but simply was not included in the manual. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Accounting and audit services agreement renewal.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The board entered into a contract with what is now MSL PA for auditing services in July of 2016. That contract has expired. Within the contract was an option for a 5-year renewal. Moore Stevens Lovelace, as they used to be called, has proposed extending that. They've given us a cost proposal for the 5 years that fits within our budget. I had previously, for the community's understanding, sent out to the trustees recommending that we just extend this versus doing a auditing search, which is a little on the cumbersome side. Mr. Henley and I have been very pleased with the services they provide. They're very thorough, which sometimes is a little bit of a headache, but they do a good job for the Bay. Staff recommends the board approve the 5-year extension to the contract.
For discussion, can we have a motion to accept the recommendation of staff?
Move to accept the recommendation of staff.
Mr. Gruno may place a motion. A second, please. Mr. Nugent, second. Discussion, questions?
I was just going to ask if John and Charles are happy, and it's tough to find an alternative. Let's go.
A question, what do we pay? I know I'm missing it here. What do we pay in, say, 2020?
It was around 21,000.
2021.
Yeah.
And so what we're looking at is, oh, I say 21. Here's, okay, 22 and 21. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're looking at, in 5 years, going up $1,000 in 5 years, correct?
Yeah.
Again, familiar with audits, not familiar, as long as they are happy with our auditing, I'm happy. I can remember, again, personal experience, back in 1995, paying $20,000 for an audit for 1 year. So we're a long way from that, so I would assume it's a fairly good deal. I'm not current with local ones, but. Okay, we have a motion to approve the renewal agreement for accounting and auditing services. Any other questions on this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passed. Okay, shuffleboard bench covers. Mr. Coffey, this is something I really don't know a whole lot about, so.
I'll try to give a little background. In the probably 5 to 6 years ago, the current shuffleboard courts were resurfaced. Around that same time, we had a grant program for the community center that residents voiced their opinions that they wanted new benches, covers. The items the gentleman spoke under audience participation, we've been working on the budget since October, November. This is the first time I've heard anybody suggest it's time to resurface it. But the equipment and the scoreboards are easy to be replaced. The back ring, wagon wheel, if you want to say, the scoreboards were missing in 2013. That had been cannibalized long before I got here. 50 years ago, shuffleboard had a lot of players. We have a fair amount of players now, but not what 1970s Florida was. And that's part of the reason of converting that to a miniature golf. So we can address those two concerns. This is just following through a budget that was initially proposed and adopted by a board back in 2018 to put the same benches and the same covers on. We only went out for the one proposal because we wanted to have the same type of covers in that area as same as the bocce. It's certainly, if y'all don't want to put covers on that, that's fine with me. The next time somebody complains to me about no covers at the shuffleboard court, I'll refer them to May 14th video. But
So what exactly, you're talking about like a grill cover? I mean, it's a cover
No.
that goes over, what do you mean cover?
These are ground-mounted posts that, there's two posts that go up, there's a metal frame, a fabric. The gentleman is correct. If you're in early morning or late afternoon, the cover is just for the bench. It's not a canopy that stretches 10 feet in each direction. So if you're not there when the sun is high in the sky, the shade is somewhere other than where you're sitting. So this has been on our to-do list for a while. We're just trying to knock out the projects, and we brought this back to you. If the board wants to, I recommended, awarding contract because this has been some previous board's been asking me to get done. If you want to not award contract, it won't hurt my feelings. So we look for direction.
Okay, again, we pass motions before we discuss. So I need a motion to accept the recommendation of staff to award the bench covers. I'll make a motion to accept it. I need a second. Seconded by Mr. Nugent. Okay, now questions and discussion. Again, my point would be, I guess, do we want to, because this is not something that's like being brought up by staff and saying they've been waiting to do this. Do we want to go ahead with this, or do we want to wait and say, let's see if we get some more input from some people and see if this is something they really want? It doesn't matter to me one way or another, but I hate to go and pass something when all of a sudden the first person I hear from anything about it says, we don't really want that.
I had a resident come up to me and say the bocce ball area, the seats are worthless. Don't bother buying them for the shuffleboard.
So say what?
That the current seats at the bocce ball court with the covers are worthless.
Oh. Well, again, I mean, I'm sure John doesn't care if he doesn't have to have people go and do another project right now, but I would think we would just hold on this and get some more information, see what other people say. I mean, do we have anybody? I'm not strong either way, but I just hate passing something that somebody doesn't think is doing, we don't want to spend $29,000 if we don't have to.
I think we should investigate it a little bit more.
Yeah.
I was impressed that the gentleman that spoke earlier, that we do have a robust league that's out there, so.
Yeah, I guess I wish that we would have known more about this before this, I guess.
And maybe they need benches, but like I said, I had a specific
Yeah.
person say the canopy wasn't worth it.
We have all the benches there. One thing I can tell you, and it probably doesn't sound good on TV, you're never going to please everybody in Barefoot Bay.
No, of course, no. But again, in this case, I guess, we are spending $29,000, and I guess I would just simply like to say, let's, if this was something that I was really after, I would say we're going to do it no matter what people say. But somebody's telling me that it's not something they like, I'm not going to vote for this. So anyway, let's vote on it. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. All those opposed to the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion fails. Okay, 19th hole walk-in, that's where we're right. 19th hole walk-in cooler freezer site design.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The current budget has $50,000 for a walk-in cooler freezer. There's two plausible locations for it. They're both outside the building. One is on the east side. That's the parking lot side. Issues to deconflict there are an existing propane line, a CO2 system, and a grease trap system. On the west side, we would need to elevate an area because as folks who have gone out the west side of the golf course know, there are steps going down, and we'd have to punch a hole through the building for access to it. Therefore, rather than flipping a coin on which way to go, this proposal would have a design team come out, assess the two locations, and help us develop a site plan that deconflicts the least costly site to move forward on. Staff recommends approval.
Can we have a motion to accept the recommendation of staff to do a design proposal of $7,600 from TLC for the 19th hole walk-in cooler? Motion by Mr. Morrissey. Second, please. Mr. Nugent. Comments, questions? As I told you before, I went through all of this with Kathy Mendez. She showed me exactly where the sites are going to be, not because of this item, but because of the other things I talked about before. They definitely have to do a design there because irregardless of where they put it, there are a couple of issues there. So we are putting this in, which again, by the way, we put this walk-in cooler in, it frees up another area and another space there that falls right in line with what I talked about, the range, hood, and the new stove and that. So this will be some good improvements to the 19th hole without really moving any walls or doing a whole lot of things and making a big reconstruction project. So any other questions, comments about this?
I just think we should invest in our community.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion as stated, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Budget, fiscal year 21 budget amendment, trimming of the palm trees on the golf course. Mr. Coffey.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The resolution that Mr. Eppinger will read will recognize $15,000 of fund balance and add $15,000 to the expenditure account in the golf pro shop to pay for the trimming of the palm trees that was approved at the last meeting, and the work will start next week. Staff recommends approval.
Mr. Eppinger.
Resolution 2020-107, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Barefoot Bay Recreation District amending Resolution 2020-08, amending the budget.
Thank you, sir. Can I have a motion to approve the resolution as presented?
Move to approve.
Mr. Gruno, motion. Second, please. Mr. Morrissey, second. Discussion. Again, this is something we did last meeting. It's simply moving the money. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. That's it. Manager's report.
Veterans Kiosk update. The unit is scheduled to be shipped at the end of this month, and once it is set up, the data will be loaded, monitor put in place, artwork restored, and I think everyone will appreciate the update in the hallway. Assessment update, we are up to 95.8% of budgeted receipts. According to Mr. Hinley, approximately 204 homes are still delinquent on this year's assessments. Details are attached. Resident relations, the ARC meeting on the 11th, 29 permits were approved, 5 old ones were continued. Next one will be on the 25th of May. Violations meeting, there were 10 cases presented today, and in the busyness of the day, I assume they were all found in violations. 6 were tabled as they're working with staff, and 3 came into compliance prior to the meeting. Next meeting is on May 28th. Of note, June 1st is the return to normalcy regarding our social membership badges, homeowner badges. Residents have until the end of the month to get their new badge. If you still have an old one, you need to come into the administration building and get your picture taken, because we have a new badge that looks like it came from the 1990s versus the 1970s. Administration building will be open Saturday, May 22nd, for folks to get their badges. I believe that's the morning hours. I did not get the whole message typed in this morning, and I'll find it real quick. This is when I need the Jeopardy music, because I can't click fast enough to cover up my mistake. 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Saturday, May 22nd. And if that doesn't work for you, give us a call. Mr. Armington or one of his staff will come in early, stay late, do whatever it takes. We've been known to drop badges off at people's homes if they're homebound or have difficulty getting out. Mr. Armington earns his reputation as the nice guy of the admin building every day. Food and beverage, the 50th anniversary celebration is proceeding. There's an orientation event for club members next Tuesday at 10 a.m. And this Saturday, Highway Number 1 will be playing 6 to 10 p.m. Lakeside box lunches, hot dogs available for purchases. Mr. Getz's folks have been busy as ever. I won't read all of his items, but we've tidied up some trip hazards behind Building A. The CVO donated pavilion had a very good use this last weekend, and a large for Barefoot Bay wedding was there that thoroughly enjoyed it. They've been fixing a lot of things that break and keeping up on the maintenance, and installed the bollards and rope that Chairman Emeritus Klosky tried to get completed before he left the board, and we got it done in the month of May. But we've done a short section so far. Our resident who behaves badly is behaving good, so we keep our fingers crossed. If needed, we can extend the bollards more. And been working on addressing minor issues as they come up. Mr. Getz and his staff have been busily looking for bids and quotes. We have some roof replacement bids that will come on the next board meeting for y'all. As mentioned, the tree trimming and golf course aerification starts next week, Monday and Tuesday. The back 9 putting greens are closed, and the front 9 and range is closed on Thursday and Friday. Details are posted at the Pro Shop for the Junior Golf COVID Safe Camp details. Sessions begin mid-next month. And save the date, the golf course will be helping celebrate the 50th anniversary with a tournament. First 24 people to sign up will receive a free gift. A few notes, and most of the trustees received the Florida Association of Special Districts legislative updates throughout the session. It looks like there's 2 bills that definitely will impact us. A third one, we're still seeking information. House Bill 1103 will have Mr. Henley reporting some more statistics during his annual audit process. House Bill 35 probably will reduce some of our advertising costs, as Florida today is losing the exclusive rights basically to our posting official notices. House Bill 53 may require us to do a needs assessment of our stormwater system. As details come out, I'll keep you up to date. At the last meeting, I gave you all notice that the veteran service space is going to be vacant at the end of this month. We had an agenda item for direction. One of the tenants approached us last week about wanting to lease that. Both parties could not, Mr. Henley and the tenant could not get together this week, but we're hopeful to get that lease proposal to you in a future meeting. And if we can't come to terms, we will then come ask for direction. And lastly, just a little update on the re-roofing project. The building permit was issued in late April, although due to difficulties in obtaining some specific parts and a RFI regarding the vent pipe above the hood for the restaurant, I granted them a 37-day extension. The issue with the vent pipe deals with the motor at the top, which is not part of the contract, which is the responsibility of the business owner. We're still in the process of figuring out the facts. As I get more information on that, I'll let you know. But we hope to knock this out. Unfortunately, it looks like we will keep our string intact of all our roof projects we do during the rainy season. We tried to get it done earlier, but the stars were not aligned. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, sir. Attorney's report. Mr. Reppinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll start off. I did email you out just during the meeting, actually, the latest update on the DOR enforcement, so you will have that to review at your leisure. There are 2 cases, however, that I would like to draw your attention to and just discuss briefly. One of them is, as you heard today, was the hearing that we had this morning, which was on it was case number on when you look at the updated status list, will be number 3 on the list, which was 803 Beach. That was a case that involved residents having 3 dogs on their property in violation of the deed of restrictions requiring no greater than 2 animals. As you can see, the issues that present themselves are relatively emotional. It was an emotional hearing this morning. However, the court did find in our favor. The court gave the defendants 30 days to come into compliance, declared them in violation of the deed of restrictions, and enjoined them within 30 days to come into compliance. As you can see from the public comment today, court doesn't advise the defendant how to come into compliance, just that they have to come into compliance. Where that case sits now is so we have an order making that finding, and then after 30 days, if the defendants don't come into compliance, then we'll bring it back to the court on a motion for an order to show cause to demonstrate why they haven't brought it into compliance, and the court can determine whatever sanctions it wants to determine related to the lack of compliance, if there is none. What will follow will also be a motion to tax attorneys' fees and costs in that case, which the court also this morning in its order determined that the district has an entitlement to. And so we will also be filing a separate motion to tax attorneys' fees and costs against the defendants, and that will be rendered as a final judgment. And that will bring that matter effectively from the standpoint of the violation case to a close, assuming that the the defendants bring their property into compliance. The other case I wanted to bring your attention to is 1025 Wren Circle, which you will see on your report as number 14 on the report. 1025 Wren Circle came into compliance. This is a case, and I don't suspect that the board's going to want to get into a lot of detail about it, but I did want to put it on your radar screen. I know we have our workshop coming up on May 25th to discuss legal services and costs, and it may be appropriate to discuss some of these things at that time, depending on the attitude or will of the board. But I wanted to bring this one to your attention, at least to put it on your radar screen so that you're thinking about it, because this is the kind of case that presents a problem for us, particularly with regard to costs and fees. And if that's what one of the concerns of the board is, and I suspect that it is, this is the kind of thing that we need to be thinking about and looking about this case. This is a case where we actually filed a complaint. Shortly after filing the complaint and having the complaint served on the defendant owner, we were advised that the owner, who I believe is a widow, and I believe is of limited financial resources, was in contact with the CVO as far as resolution of the violation. Shortly after service on the defendant, we were advised that the case was on its in progress of being resolved with the help of the CVO, and that process played out for several weeks, months, and eventually the case did come into compliance. And we were finally advised this week by staff that the violation had in fact come into compliance. And we, during the period of time that the CVO was working with the owner to bring the property into compliance, basically halted and stayed our efforts as far as the case go to try to limit any kind of additional costs from being incurred. So the case is now in compliance, yet the litigation is still active. Yet there's been no finding by the court like there was this morning. There's been no order. There's been no judgment. But the case is still sitting there. It's a litigation case. Now it's in compliance. So the question is, what do you do with that case at this point in time? You've got an active litigation case. We have basically two options. One is for our office to file a series of subsequent motions so that the court can determine that the property actually was out of compliance when we filed the suit, and determining an entitlement to legal fees and costs, similar to what they will do in the case that we just heard about. Or this board can consider dismissing the suit based on the situation related to this particular defendant and waiving the costs and fees. You've seen, this board has seen at various times, defendants, owners coming before you after compliance and asking for waiver of legal fees and costs. And when justified, this board has in the past waived legal fees, but not the hard costs related to the case. Every case is different. There isn't necessarily one precedent that's going to apply to every single respondent owner. In this case, you've got an owner who apparently is indigent, although I don't really know the backstory or all of the facts related to that party. And so the amount of fees that you have that are applicable to that case right now is, with your filing fees and all in, is about $1,800. That's where that case sits right now in terms of fees. So if we continue the case, you're likely to incur perhaps double that to go and get a judgment against an owner who came into compliance on a property that's not out of violation at the current time, for a judgment that you're not likely to really collect on because you can't, foreclose it, and it's a personal judgment against the owner. And so that's the kind of case that presents a real problem for us. Now, when I don't want to belabor the discussion, but when our office was advised that the property came into compliance, I had a conversation with staff, and my suggestion was that perhaps the owner should file a request to come here to appear before you to request that waiver. Mr. Coffey's opinion, with which I factually, respectfully had a different take on, was that based on your action at the April 9th meeting, that this board didn't want to entertain any waivers of any kind. What the April 9th hearing was about the tax deed process and waiver of a lien. So that didn't have anything to do with the DOR cases. It had to do with a lien, but I understand the position. And so basically the response from staff was, well, we don't think that we can bring those back to the board until the board authorizes that. And so that's why at this time I wanted to raise that issue to you. I'm not looking for directive here today. We may want to talk about this on the 25th, or we may want to put it on a subsequent agenda. But I do want to get you thinking about the fact that, these cases at this point in time, in a case like this, is somewhat of a bottomless pit of expenditure. And if you look at DOR enforcement and you look at the ultimate outcome that you're trying to achieve in DOR enforcement, it's compliance. And if there's a cost associated with that, well, maybe there is a cost associated with that. And, there may be a justification for actually pursuing a judgment on a case that's contested. That's totally understandable and justified. And there may be other cases where it's worth waiving or dismissing.
So Cliff, and it's very good points and good information. The point is, though, if we wanted to, right now we don't have to do anything immediately. I mean, but if we want to get a judgment where we would get the fees and et cetera, paid by the defendant, we have to continue with the court case.
That's correct.
Correct? Otherwise, we would stop it right now, and we would simply be out the money we've spent up to this point. But that doesn't mean we have to. Well, no, the person would not have paid anything, so she's not going to come and request anything from us. She would only be coming here asking for a waiver of it if we continue with the court case, and it could be double.
Well, ultimately, if you do nothing, that's the direction that we will go. Well, again, we're going to take direction from the board, but my assumption is that the board's going to want us to move forward and pursue that final judgment. But what I'm, so the owner doesn't really. I don't know if the owner even really understands the consequence of that at this point. I was raising the issue because, although staff wants to close these cases and move on, we've got these issues with fees to deal with. So we can't just move on unless we're getting a directive one way or the other to do something with it. So,
Okay.
On cases that we don't file a lawsuit on, those cases we do close and we don't really do anything with as far as the fee goes, because what the DOR says, and this is really important for you all to understand, what the DOR says is if you file a lawsuit, that if you bring that suit and you are successful in that suit, you are entitled to your fees and costs, okay? Until you bring a lawsuit, until you file that suit, and until the court makes a determination that the district was justified in bringing the suit, the entitlement to fees and costs doesn't exist, right? So let's use today's
So automatically, if we get a judgment in our favor, we automatically are entitled to collect fees.
That's correct. That's correct. So let's use today's example. Today's example, we went to court. We went all the way to a final hearing. The court found them in violation. The court made a determination that they must come into compliance, and the court entered an order saying that we have an entitlement. The district has an entitlement to its fees. So now we have a court entitlement to fees. If we don't file a lawsuit, or if we don't have a final judgment, there is no entitlement to fees at that moment.
Okay, so the final question, I guess, is when do you need input from the board on this? Not today.
Well, it's not going to happen today. Not today. We will address it as we move forward.
Okay.
But the reason why I'm at least raising it today is because the feedback that I got back from staff, respectfully, was we can't even consider that
Right.
unless we get some directive from the board to do
Right,
that.
right.
And so my only way to address that issue is to raise it with you here today. If we want to talk about it on the 25th, we can do that. I'll be more than happy to give input at that time. And if then we want to set it on a separate agenda, we can do that too. The case isn't going anywhere.
Okay.
The court's not driving it, and so I just wanted to basically bring that to your attention. And just one more point of distinction that I'll make to you in case it wasn't clear. Huge distinction between those legal fees and costs in DOR enforcement and recorded liens. Huge difference. In recorded liens, like for when staff takes curative action and engages in power washes or lot mows, and they lien a property, that's an entitlement under the DOR. The district has a right to place a lien against the property. It's an actual lien that exists. So, for instance, the gentleman that came before you today on the request to release, those are recorded liens that exist. The district has no obligation to release them at all, and they exist. And if you do nothing, if the district does absolutely nothing and lets them sit there, eventually someone's going to have to satisfy those liens. And so that's a different issue than what we're talking about here, which are costs that are incurred as a part of the function of engaging in DOR enforcement, and they're unsecured costs. Liens are secured by the property. So that's a big difference to keep in mind as we talk about these things. So that's that. The other thing I wanted to tell you, on May 3rd, we received a response from TLC. I don't think that we've talked about that because we haven't had a meeting yet. Basically concluding that, in their opinion, that the piles were required for the beach restroom project, and outlining their position with regard to the building code requirements that apply. So we've received that. We are putting together a package that we're going to be submitting to Brevard County Building. I'm hoping to do that next week based on that opinion, and then we will frame it properly for Brevard County as far as requesting a variance. So we're back in the variance court based on TLC's opinion, and hopefully, if the county agrees with us, we will go before the Board of the Construction Board of Adjustment. That's what I'm hoping. And so I'll keep you advised as to when that gets filed and what the outcome of that is. Again, we have our workshop on the 25th, and the only other matter was the Stewart lease. I think we're looking at now June 11th. That's partly my bad, but we're getting there, so it looks like we'll be on the June 11th agenda. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Okay, you answered two of the questions I had about the beach and Stewart. In the court of appeals. Okay, very good. Incidental trustee remarks. Mr. Gruno.
First, I'll start with a question to John. This is the one I get every day. When's Building A going to be done?
The substantial completion, I believe, is June 12th, and typically you have 10 to 14 days after that, so safe bet the end of June.
Okay. First, I want to thank the CVO for dinner Wednesday night and the meet and greet. That was really a nice affair, and I think we had a lot of new residents that got a lot of good information out of that. And then last but not least, the Memorial Day ceremony for Barefoot Bay will be on the 31st. It's going to step off from the tennis courts at about 10:45, decorate up your golf carts, and we're going to head on down to the Oaks where we had the Veterans Day service. Following the ceremony, there'll be hot dogs and light refreshments. Thanks.
Mr. Morrissey.
Right, I don't have anything specifically except the fact that can you hear me? I don't
Yep.
know if you can hear me or not. I want to thank the board and the manager, Mr. Coffey, and this group there, and employees going forward on the request about taking care of the speeders in the bay. I understand they're going to have a survey coming up. It'll take about 6 or 7 months, I understand. I guess everybody wants a survey of speeders, but I do appreciate the effort, and I want to thank them very much for doing that. I have something to say now to people when they ask me about the speeders
Right.
in the bay. Thank you.
And again, Mr. Morrissey, I talked to him. I had told him before we knew the letter had been sent out to the county by Sally, I believe it was, and asking about stop signs. I was going to add to the agenda today an item to discuss it again, suggesting we write a letter and I would sign it as chairman, et cetera, et cetera. But again, that's already been done, so I appreciate what they did
Thank
too. Mr. Nugent.
Yeah, I think kudos to the CVO. Did a great job for the meet and greet. Congratulations to Kathy. Always puts on a splendid meal. It was nice to meet with all the managers as well.
Very nice. Thank you. The only thing I have to say is, and I know I'm used to talking about numbers and going forth, and people don't always understand exactly what we're talking about because sometimes a person leaves a few numbers out. And I just want to make sure people understand that when we talked about the one-time fee going up and the amounts of money we would have left over, that's not just from the new amount for the social membership fee. That is what we propose as our surplus budget each of those years. So it's about half and half. So I don't want people to think that when we talk about having $546,000 or $386,000, it's all from that fee. It's the surplus and the new one-time fee that we'll charge. And I don't want anybody to be confused about numbers. I have nothing else. I again thank the CVO for what they did. It's very nice. We talk a lot about the 50th celebration, 50 years of the Bay, I guess it is, or whatever. Unfortunately, I just need to make sure you all know now, I will not be here on the 4th. So if there's anything that we have to do on behalf of the board, you're first vice chair, so you'll have to do it. Okay, that's all I have. Anything else for the good? Yes, sir.
I forgot to thank the CVO. I'm sorry.
No, that's
It was good. It was not on my agenda right now. But
Thank you.
yeah,
Okay.
it was very good. The meal was great.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
would look for a motion to adjourn. So moved by Mr. Nugent, the meeting is adjourned.
Cliff.